Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salano Makudiran. In a bit, we'll be joined by Ahmed Munzoor Shaik. He's a former member of parliament and also the president of the Allied Movement for Change, AIM4C. And we'll be chatting about DECO and the appointment of the new Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola. You can interact with us on WhatsApp. Our studio line is 061 and our studio line is 01168000355. Our Twitter handle is at Salam Media, and the show's hashtag is hashtag news and views. You can listen to us on a live stream. That's www.salammedia.com/listen-live. With all that said and done, I'd like to introduce President of the Allied Movement for Change, Ahmed Munzoor Shaik. Is also a former member of parliament. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, beautiful day in city of Devon. Yes, indeed. And Jazakallah for having me on the air this morning.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. I think we'll just, jump right into it. But first and foremost, before I focus on DECO, I just want to hear your thoughts on the formation of the GNU. You're a member of the 6th administration, member of parliament. You made up, cabinet, very, very vocal member of parliament during your tenure. We're seeing this new uncharted waters of coalition politics unfolding right in front of us. I'm sure you have a lot to say about the GNU, the parties that comprise of it, and ultimately what it can do for South Africa.
Well, let me start off by saying that before the elections on the 29th of May, there was no discussion whatsoever by any political parties about a government of national unity. This came about as a result of the political parties that participated in the elections having not garnered enough support to have had a majority. And normally you would have a coalition government. Now, in order to avoid that coalition government, and of course it is quite obvious that particularly from the so-called ruling party, which is the ANC, they had limited options. They were not willing to work with the MK party and the EFF. And as such, the only other option, instead of calling it a government, they're calling it a government of national unity rather than a coalition government. And in order to do that, of course, you would have had to share power, very similar to coalition governments in any event. However, what is important to note that these political parties that entered into the government of national unity are all part of the cabinets, those that have been, of course, given these positions of ministers and deputy ministers. But very importantly, they come with their own policies, their own ideologies. And in order to get them to sit at that table and be able to agree on most of the things, it's going to be very difficult. An ideal example, and I think one of them we're going to be discussing shortly, is the issue of Palestine and international relations. And they've never agreed on this before. In fact, all the political parties, other than I think Al Jamaat, that are part and parcel of the government of national unity, have not supported the Palestinian cause, the upholding of human rights, whether it's locally or internationally. So that makes it very, very difficult. But that's just one instance. There's almost every other issue or policy that we're talking about, the NHI, these political parties were opposing it. You talk about the employment equity bill, okay? Some of them opposed it. If you talk about the BEE, they've opposed it. They've been very critical about the size of the cabinet, and suddenly they're not critical, where the president had to reduce it, and they raised serious concerns when he increased the numbers and took some of those particular portfolios into the presidency. Now he has gone and increased it to more deputy ministers and things. So, I think what one needs to wait and see is whether this particular government of nationality will stand the test of time, given the fact that they all have their own vision, ideologies, policies on how they want to govern.
Mm. I want us to shift our focus now to, what you previously mentioned, and I think what is going to be the heart of our conversation. Palestine, and the appointment of the new Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola. First and foremost, I can tell you for certain that there are concerns, from various organizations and activists, regarding the fact that the voices that, seemingly championed the cause of the Palestinian people in Parliament, now getting very, very limited. You have Mandla Mandela, who's currently out of parliament, of yourself, who championed, the visa-free policy for Palestinians in South Africa, out of parliament. You have Naledi Pandor, I think, who's one of the main protagonists when it comes to pro-Palestine narrative in South Africa. Is Palestine activism still healthy, and do Palestinians still have a voice in the South African parliament, looking at the cabinet that was announced, and also who was announced on what portfolio, according to how you are seeing it? And
Well,
should we be concerned?
first of all, I can tell you that the support and the concerns that have been raised on the issue of the struggle of the Palestinian people, and you are absolutely correct. From the government perspective, Naledi Pandor has been very vocal, very objective. And if you talk about the deputy minister, who is still the deputy minister, so it's not as if the president did not have options, he did. Alvin Boertes was very vocal on the Palestinian issue, there's no doubt about it. In terms of the Naledi Pandor, who may not have made the list, the president, remember, still has options in terms of appointing ministers, even though they are not members of parliament. I think he has two opportunities. He's chosen not to take that one. And remember that to a very large extent, particularly the Muslim vote for the ANC came as a result of the contributions made by Naledi Pandor. We cannot take that away from him. But equally, Alvin Boertes, who's been the Deputy Minister of International Relations and remains the Deputy Minister, was also very vocal about the cause. You talk about myself, and you can talk about Mandla Mandela, and you can talk about Nazir Paulson. All of them are not there. These were the five people that made the most amount of noise or raised the most concerns about the plight of the Palestinian people. Okay? So that is my concern, that it's not as if the president did not have any other options. He's had them. Now let's look at the issue of Ronald Lamola. He was just the Minister of Justice who took his team and went through, to deal with the matter at the ICJ. Is he vocal enough as a politician? No. Has he said enough about the Palestinian cause? No, he has not done that. All I can see that will happen for the next 5 years, perhaps one or two comments will be made in the seventh parliament about the issue of Palestine, and that's it. Other political parties that are opposing this, which is the DA, the IFP, the PA, and all these other political parties, will totally ignore it. Because remember, at the end of the day, any police policy decision and things you have to take, you have to take that together as a cabinet. And for the first time, you're going to find that the cabinet is not going to agree on everything. Previously, it was run by the ANC, and so they've agreed on everything they've done. Even some of the things that we were unhappy about, it was not even brought to us. And when it was brought to us at the 11th hour after they've taken a decision. The ball game is going to be different here. You cannot expect, and remember the public domain, they have an expectation, the media has an expectation, the West, who is now virtually controlling South Africa, has expectations. What is your view, DA, on the issue of Palestine? When we see the ANC or any other political party saying anything, these are what the expectations are going to be. So I think what you're going to get is a suppressed version of the struggle of the Palestinian people. Nothing much is going to happen. The ICJ issue, let us be honest, yes, indeed, it was brave of us to take it then, but one needs to look deeper into it. What have we achieved? Has the plight of the Palestinian people changed? Has the Israeli government, supported by the Zionist West, have they ever taken seriously these institutions? Have they stopped the war on the Palestinian people? No. Has the war stopped on the people in the international community whose rights are being violated by the West, regime change and things that take place? No, it hasn't. So clearly, very little or nothing is going to happen. If anything, it's going to come from the ground, but certainly not much from the ANC. And because if you look at the present members of the ANC in any event, none of them have been as vocal other than the deputy minister. And here he remains as a deputy minister when he could have been given an opportunity to have now led that portfolio of international relations for the region.
I want us to take a quick break. When we come back, I want you to answer this for me. You mentioned that, Mr. Botis, who's currently the deputy minister of DERCO, could have easily been made the minister. The president also, you mentioned having all these options, to include, voices that are very, very pro-Palestine in his cabinet, but seemingly chose not to. After we come back, I want to find out from you if this was a deliberate act. Was this, something that was planned from the onset, seeing just how vocal South Africa was and in the forefront, and maybe some of, quote unquote stakeholders of the West not being happy and saying, this is the options you're going to take. These are the people you'll be placing in strategic positions, and South Africa won't be leading that campaign against the Israel genocide regime that's currently killing thousands of Palestinians as we speak right now. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll chat about whether or not this was deliberate or it was, consequences for a course after this.
At their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Contact Lenasia Livestock and Poultry for all your sadaqah, akika and kurbani requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goats and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute on your behalf, but that's not all. Introducing Meat Masters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Lenasia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are Sanha approved. Telephone 011-857-1774. Call now.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. The time is 24 minutes past 8 and you're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salalo Makwidiri. This is News and Views, standing in for Julie Ali. And as I mentioned before, I started this interview, is that you can interact with us on WhatsApp. Our line is 0617660355. Send us a voice note. Our studio line is 0116800355. And all social media platforms, you can engage with us by searching Salam Media. I'm still joined by the president of the Allied Movement for Change, Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam, and we're talking about Palestine, DERCO, and the appointment of Ronald Lamola as the new Minister of International Relations. And before we went to the break, Mr. Munzoor, well, by the way, thank you so much for staying with us. Before we went to the break, I mentioned, the fact that could what we're seeing right now, this seemingly muting of Palestinian voices in our cabinet, be something that is deliberate? Is this a deliberate act because of just how forthcoming the sixth administration was when it comes to speaking out against the state of Israel, making sure that we cut ties with them, and also being so forthcoming, especially in the international stage, and being very unequivocal for our support for Palestine?
Well, let's just start off and look at the credibility of the elections that we've just had, with thousands of objections, legitimate objections with evidence, all clearly indicating that the elections were rigged. Is an indication that this election was rigged and planned long before the elections itself. If you look at the results, you leave political parties, even like the ANC, with no other option but to work with the likes of the DA, the IFP, and the PA and others. And also, if you look at the arrogance of the IEC, and despite the matters going to court and things and wanting to do nothing about it, clearly shows that there's been a plan. Let us not forget that the IT company that the IEC currently uses is contracted from the United States of America. If you look at the day of the election alone, for most part of the day, the system was either up and down all the time. If you go further than that, let us not forget when the system crashed. Let us not also forget about those from the public domain that raised concerns of political parties whose numbers were higher and then came lower, and when, and the things that were actually happening. And if you look at the arrogance of the ANC and the DA, who believed and told the public that they're going to get majorities, despite the fact that it was not realistically expected that they can master the, and get the support that they needed. So where was all this actually coming from? Exactly what happens with the rigging of elections internationally is what South Africa faced on the 29th of May. There's no doubt about it. Now, if you look at the appointments that the president has made, okay, it clearly indicates that this is to appease and please the West, the Zionists and the West. This is exactly what they want. They had control of the economy and the country pre-94. They've maintained that over the 30 years, and they were about to lose that. There were serious threats, particularly with the emergence of Jacob Zuma and the MK and others. And so what was the alternative? Particularly if you look at the momentum the Palestinian cause was gaining over a period of time, indications where many countries and even people locally and businesses were starting to see what the reality is on the ground internationally and how this handful of people want to maintain control and power. Taking all that into consideration, of course, that is why these elections were rigged to the extent it is to achieve a certain objective, which is what they have done. Now, if you look at some of the portfolios that the president and ministers that he has actually appointed will clearly tell you, I'll give you a good example. If you look at the gains that the Freedom Front has been making over a period of time, and it's common knowledge in South Africa that the Freedom Front is aligned to farmers and agriculture. You could have given Groenewald the portfolio of agriculture. No, you're giving it to John Steenhuisen, who knows nothing about planting anything. But what did you do? You went now and separated the portfolio of justice and correctional service and given an insignificant portfolio of correctional services to Groenewald in order to reduce his support base in the agricultural sector or in the farming community. So you look at how strategic that is. I'll give you another good example. And this is an ideal one. Corporate governance, such an important portfolio given to the Democratic Alliance, both nationally and provincially. Now, why was it given provincially and nationally? Because the ANC that governs in eThekwini municipality is not aligned to the Cyril Ramaphosa faction. They are aligned more to the Zuma faction. So that now the corporate governance MEC, who will report to his own political party head, Slabisa of the IFP, will now remove that ANC faction. He'll start targeting them, something you've already seen. Go further than that. If you look at those in KwaZulu-Natal, many of those local authorities and municipalities, he's already been removing people and replacing them with IFP. So in order to prevent the ANC being in the forefront of dealing with their own people in eThekwini, you go there and you actually put somebody from the opposition, who you're now in bed with in terms of the government of national unity, who was your greatest opposition. Remember, it is Jacob Zuma that took KZN away from the IFP and brought it through to the ANC in order to deal with that entire faction. And I have some information that there might be 17 by-election because many of them were looking forward to quitting them. So you can see how devious this entire process is to achieve a certain objective. Now, a good example. Let's look at the issue of energy. We all know that President Cyril Ramaphosa and Minister Mantashe have been at loggerheads. Minister Mantashe means you cannot rely entirely on renewable energy. You need a mix of both. President has been pushing the issue of renewable energy. Who owns all these renewable companies? People aligned to him and big business, so that they can make mega bucks of exporting your coal and make money locally out of renewable energy. Whereas Gwedi Mantashe wanted of. What did you do? You split that portfolio now. You've given him the issue. You've taken that energy away from him, and you've given him mineral resources. And very conveniently, look at what you've done to that department. So you can see how this is well planned and orchestrated in order to achieve a certain objective. Simply, the answer is to ensure that white monopoly capital in South Africa will maintain and sustain their control over this economy, which will appease the West. This is what it is all about.
And just two questions before I let you go. One being that of Minister Ronald Lamola. Going forward, how confident are we that he will champion the cause of the people of Palestine? And number two, just out of context to our discussion, your thoughts to Al Jamaa previously with the Progressive Caucus, with yourselves joining the Government of National Unity. What do you make of that?
Well, okay, first on Ronald Lamola, I don't have high expectations as far as that is concerned. You understand? Like I've said, he hasn't been vocal on the Palestinian issue, just as the Minister of Justice, of course. He had a role to play and he's been there, and let's give him credit for the work he's done there. However, I think one needs to go deeper in to see, whether there's going to be an attempt to continue promoting the well-being of the Palestinian people and protecting their rights, given the fact you have a government of national unity right now, okay, and you got opposing factions with opposing views and policies. That's the first thing. And of course, given the fact what I've just said, very importantly, that we believe that these things were well orchestrated, and what we've achieved today is to appease the West. I'm not expecting much to come as far as Palestine. And more importantly, all the political parties that were there, including Al Jamaa, to be honest with you, did very little or nothing in the Palestinian cause from a parliamentary perspective. Let us be honest about it. In fact, it's myself that brought the first motion to downgrade. It's the role that I played in making sure that the visa-free entry for Palestinian people into South Africa and things like that. And of course, the ANC supported. Al Jamaa did, of course, support it, but it never came from them. So we need people. Perhaps it might be a little bit different now that we are not there. Now they have to do what they have to do. On the issue of joining the government national unity, well, these are all the political parties that said they will never, ever work with the Zionist Democratic Alliance. So the question is, what is this all about? Is it in the interest of the country, its people, or is it your own interest? And I think that's the question we need to ask. We've made it very clear we will not work with the Democratic Alliance. It's because of their stance on human rights, not just on the issue of Palestine, but on various issues, even locally. We've made it loud and clear. In fact, it will be. I'm going to wait and see exactly how the DA is going to respond on the attacks on the president previously, wanting him out, wanting the deputy president out, attacking them on every policy. Now you're going to be working with the same people. It's going to be interesting. But what I can think is very clear is that politicians and political parties say one thing and they do something else. It's all about how they can benefit and what they're going to benefit from that. That is why we said maybe the system of politics in South Africa should change, have a constituency base where people must elect their leaders themselves. Because political parties have taken a mandate from the people who said they will never work with the DA. If you remember what the ANC said, they've never spoken about working with the DA. They made it loud and clear. People were pushing for the community, the Muslim community particularly, to go and support the ANC, which they did. And what happened? Overnight, the ANC sold them out and gone to the DA. It's not like they don't have options, right? They have options in the likes of EFF, MK, and many other parties. They could have went it. They were not interested because that was not their mandate. So political parties that have done that have technically put their own interest before the interests of ethics and morals and values. And that's what it is all about.
All right, I think we're going to leave it there. Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam, the president of the Allied Movement for Change. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with you as this GNU unfolds right before our eyes, and there'll be so much more to unpack within it. But we're going to leave it here for now. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll be speaking to Hassan Lorkat. He's a former member of the anti-apartheid sports movement and currently with the SAPDS coalition. And we'll be speaking about the impact of the hashtag Red Card Israel campaign and Palestinian sports teams playing in South Africa. We're seeing that the new Minister of Sports and Arts and Culture is now Gaten McKenzie, another one who's very, very unequivocal for his support for Israel. Is he going to be playing that part now, making sure that South Africa and Israel integrate a bit more when it comes to sports, arts and culture, and the exchange between, sports and cultural exports between the two countries? Or are we going to see, the maintenance of a cordial relationship and warm relationship that we've been enjoying with Palestine with the exchange of sports and cultural presentations between the two countries. So it's going to be a really, really interesting one. Hassan Lorgat joins us after the break.